Every day you wake up, you got two choices. You can stay the same, or you can chase the man you were meant to be. The greatest battle ain't against the world, it's against yourself. And the question is simple. Can you keep the promises you make to Wyo? Because if you can't trust yourself, you can't trust nothing. Tonight, we're talking about mastering the hardest fight of all, self-commitment. Discipline over feelings is the foundation of every true transformation. The problem with most people is not that they don't have dreams, not that they don't have goals, but that they allow their feelings to dictate their actions. Feelings are temporary. They change with the weather. They rise and fall with your mood. They're influenced by exhaustion, fear, doubt, and distraction. Discipline, on the other hand, is steady, unshaken. It is the decision to act regardless of what you feel in the moment. Every champion, every leader, every warrior who has stood on the mountaintop of success has learned that if you only act when you feel like it, you will never arrive where you're meant to be. The body will say, I'm tired. The mind will whisper, I can't. The emotions will scream, it's too much. But discipline is the voice that says, we'll move anyway. Discipline is not glamorous. It's not loud. It's not something that people will cheer for when they don't see the results yet. Discipline happens in the dark, in the lonely places, in the early mornings when no one else is awake, in the late nights when everyone else has gone to sleep. Discipline is when the alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and every cell in your body tells you to stay under the warm blanket, but you get up because you promised yourself you would. Discipline is when your stomach craves junk food, but you eat what fuels your body because you made a commitment to your health. Discipline is when your friends invite you out, but you stay home to study, to train, to build, because you know what you're working toward. Feelings beg for comfort. Discipline demands growth. When you start to live with discipline over feelings, you stop negotiating with yourself. The reason so many people fail on their journey is because they spend their entire life in negotiation with their feelings. Should I work out today? Do I really want to finish that project? Am I in the mood to keep going? Discipline eliminates the debate. Discipline is the contract you sign with yourself that no matter how you feel, you're going to keep the promise you made. Discipline takes decision-making out of the moment and locks it into a principle. The principle says, I said I will, so I will. The principle says, I don't care how I feel right now. The standard has already been set. You can't master self-commitment until you stop bowing down to your emotions. Feelings want instant gratification. Discipline chooses long-term fulfillment. Feelings want rest before work. Discipline says work first, then rest with peace. Feelings look for excuses. Discipline looks for solutions. Feelings focus on what hurts. Discipline focuses on what it builds. The people who change their lives are the ones who make feelings secondary and principles primary. They get to the gym whether they feel strong or not. They show up to practice whether they feel inspired or not. They grind on their craft whether they feel creative or not. And over time, that steady rhythm, that daily choice, shapes a person that feelings can't control anymore. You see, the world respects discipline. Even your enemies respect discipline. Because discipline produces results that feelings never will. You can fake passion for a moment. You can ride a wave of motivation for a few weeks. But when that fire burns out, what's left? Discipline. That's why so many people quit after January when they set their resolutions. They relied on feelings, and feelings fade. Discipline doesn't fade. Discipline strengthens. Discipline gets easier the more you do it because it becomes who you are. At first, it's hard because you're fighting yourself. But over time, discipline rewires your brain. It reprograms your instincts, and it becomes automatic. You no longer ask, do I feel like it? You just execute. And this is why discipline is a form of freedom. It sounds like a contradiction because discipline feels restrictive. But in reality, It frees you from the prison of your emotions. When you're disciplined, you don't get trapped in procrastination. You don't drown in excuses. You don't waste energy on the debate inside your head. You are free to move, free to build, free to live without the guilt of breaking promises to yourself. Most people live heavy with guilt because they know deep down they're not doing what they said they would do. Every time they break their word to themselves, their self-respect erodes. Discipline protects that respect. Discipline builds integrity with yourself. You start to trust you. And when you trust you, your confidence skyrockets because you know whatever you set your mind to, you will show up for it no matter how you feel. Discipline is not about talent. It's not about resources. It's not about luck. Discipline is about will. That's why the most dangerous person in any field is not the most gifted, but the most disciplined. Gifted people fall when their feelings shift. Disciplined people rise because they keep going. Discipline eats talent for breakfast because talent without discipline burns out, but discipline without talent still grows, still multiplies, still compounds into mastery. The difference between the dreamer and the doer is not how much they feel inspired, but how much they stick to the plan when the inspiration dies. The dreamer waits for the right feeling. The doer uses discipline to create the right reality. Think about the moments when you least feel like doing something. That's when discipline matters most. Anybody can act when they feel good, when they feel motivated, when the environment is supportive. But when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when you're afraid, when nothing is going your way, that's when discipline separates you. That's when discipline says, I don't care what it looks like right now. I don't care what I feel like right now. I'm still showing up. And when you stack enough of those moments, when you win enough battles against your feelings, you start to realize that you are in control, not your emotions. That's power. That's freedom. That's self-mastery. And the truth is, feelings can be liars. Feelings will tell you you're not good enough when you are. Feelings will tell you you're too tired when you have more left in the tank. Feelings will tell you it's not worth it when it is. If you live by feelings, you'll live in lies. Discipline says, no, I am capable. No, I do have what it takes. No, I am not stopping here. And the more you practice discipline, the more you silence the lies and strengthen the truth. Over time, your feelings start to catch up to your discipline. You don't wait to feel motivated. You feel motivated because you've already built a track record of action. Most people don't realize that discipline is the real self-love. Because what greater love is there than making yourself do the things that lead to your highest good, even when you don't feel like it? Self-love isn't just pampering yourself. It's pushing yourself. It's saying, I care about you too much to let you settle for less. I care about you too much to let you give up. Discipline is love in action. And when you live with discipline, you're not just chasing success, you're honoring yourself. Discipline over feelings is what builds the life people dream of but never touch. It's what separates the average from the great, the talkers from the doers, the pretenders from the masters. It's not about one big moment. It's about thousands of small moments where you choose discipline. Every day you get the choice again. Every day you're tempted to go back to feelings. Every day you decide whether to rise or remain. And the people who decide discipline, day after day, those are the people who build a life that feelings could never give them. Small wins build unstoppable momentum. And this is a truth that separates those who make progress from those who stay stuck in the same cycle year after year. Most people underestimate the power of the small, daily victories. They think that change requires massive leaps, huge breakthroughs, and dramatic transformations overnight. But the reality is that greatness is built brick by brick, step by step, win by win. The small wins don't look impressive at first. They don't make headlines. They don't get applause. But when they stack on top of each other, when they compound over time, they create a momentum that becomes impossible to stop. Think about it like this. Every time you honor a promise you make to yourself, no matter how small, you add a brick to the foundation of your self-belief. You say you'll wake up early, and you do. That's a brick. You say you'll hit the gym, and you show up. That's a brick. You say you'll read for 10 minutes, and you read. Another brick. Each one doesn't seem like much on its own, but stack 1,000 of them, and you built a wall. Stack 10,000, and you've built a fortress. The fortress is your identity, the unshakable belief that you are the kind of person who follows through. That fortress doesn't get built by chasing big wins once in a while. It's built by stacking small wins every single day. Momentum is powerful because it changes the psychology of how you see yourself. When you collect small wins, you start to feel progress. That feeling of progress fuels motivation. Motivation fuels more action. Action leads to more wins. The cycle feeds itself. And what starts as a slow push uphill eventually becomes a downhill run where gravity works for you instead of against you. But you only reach that point if you stay consistent long enough for the momentum to take over. The mistake most people make is they underestimate how powerful that momentum can be, so they quit before it builds. They think the small wins don't matter, so they don't respect them. They ignore the small daily choices. And because of that, they never taste the power of momentum. Small wins matter because they're achievable. You can't run a marathon in a day, but you can run a mile today. You can't build $1 million business in a week, but you can make one call today. You can't transform your body in a month, but you can do push-ups today. Each small win is a target you can hit. And every time you hit it, you prove to yourself that you are capable. Confidence doesn't come from thinking you can do something. It comes from proving to yourself that you can do it. Small wins are proof. They are the receipts of your growth. They are the evidence that you are moving in the right direction. And when you collect enough receipts, your confidence becomes unshakable. There's a reason why coaches, leaders, and high performers all talk about fundamentals. Fundamentals are just small wins done over and over until they are automatic. In sports, the champion isn't the one who pulls off a miracle play once. It's the one who masters the basics every single day in practice. In life, it's the same thing. The basics. Discipline, consistency, daily effort, those are the small wins. Do them enough times and you create mastery. Skip them because they seem too small, and you'll never reach the higher levels of performance. People think small wins are beneath them, but the truth is that small wins are the gateway to the big wins they dream about. Momentum also has another power. It changes your relationship with failure. When you've been stacking small wins, failure doesn't stop you the same way it does when you have no momentum. If you've been showing up every day, one bad day doesn't destroy you. You know you can bounce back because you've already proven it to yourself through repetition. Momentum makes you resilient. It gives you confidence that even if you stumble, you won't stay down for long. That's the difference between someone who quits at the first setback and someone who pushes through. Momentum carries them forward even when the road gets rough. There is also a psychological shift that happens when you build momentum with small wins. You stop being attached to outcomes and start being committed to the process. Because the win isn't just a result anymore. The win is the action itself. Did you show up today? That's a win. Did you put in the work? That's a win. Did you keep the promise you made to yourself? That's a win. This mindset frees you from the trap of needing instant results. You don't quit because the scale didn't move, or the money didn't show up, or the recognition didn't come. You keep going because you're winning every day by doing what you said you do. And eventually, those daily wins pile up so high that the results become undeniable. Momentum also creates identity. When you stack small wins, you begin to see yourself differently. You're no longer someone who trees or someone who dumps. You're someone who does. You're someone who shows up. You're someone who executes. And identity is the most powerful driver of behavior. When your identity changes, your actions follow naturally. You don't have to force yourself to do the work anymore because it's just who you are. That transformation doesn't happen in a single leap. It happens through the accumulation of small victories that rewrite the story you tell yourself about who you are. Another overlooked power of small wins is that they create habits. A habit is just a small win repeated until it becomes automatic. At first, it takes effort. At first, you have to push yourself. But if you keep stacking those wins, eventually the effort becomes less. The resistance fades and the behavior becomes part of your nature. That's when the real magic happens. When discipline turns into habit and habit turns into identity. That's when you start to win without even thinking about it. That's when momentum carries you forward, whether you feel like it or not. Most people fail to change their lives because they set the bar too high too soon. They think they need to take giant leaps, so they aim for goals that are too big, too overwhelming. And when they can't reach them, they quit. They don't realize if they had just aimed for small, achievable wins and stayed consistent, they would have reached that giant goal anyway, without burning out, without giving up. It's not the giant leap that changes you. It's the steady steps you take every single day. Those steps may look small, but over time, they add up to a distance you never thought you could cover. Momentum is contagious. Once you start winning, even in small ways, you begin to crave more wins. You don't want to break the streak. You don't want to lose the progress you've built. This creates a positive pressure, a standard you hold yourself to because you've seen what's possible. That's why one small win can change the trajectory of an entire life. One decision to show up today can start a chain reaction that carries you into places you never imagined. The key is to respect that first win, to value it, to treat it as the seed that will grow into the future you want. Small wins are also how you silence doubt. Doubt thrives in inactivity. When you sit around and think about everything you need to do, the mountain looks too big. The journey looks impossible. The fear feels overwhelming. But when you take a small step, when you get one small win, the doubt begins to shrink. You don't have to climb the whole mountain today. You just have to take one step. That step gives you proof, and proof crushes doubt. The more steps you take, the quieter the doubt becomes. Until one day you look back and realize you've climbed higher than you ever thought possible. Even in the toughest seasons of life, small wins keep you moving forward. There will be days when you don't feel strong enough to handle it all, when the weight of everything seems too heavy. On those days, you don't need to win the whole war. You just need to win one small battle. You don't need to do everything. You just need to do something. That something is a win. And as small as it feels, it keeps you in the fight. It keeps you moving. And eventually, it leads you out of the darkness. The truth is, no one becomes unstoppable overnight. Unstoppable is earned through the accumulation of small victories. Each win builds strength, builds confidence, builds momentum, until one day people look at you and wonder how you became so relentless, so powerful, so unshakable. They don't see the thousands of small wins behind the scenes. They just see the result. But you know the truth, the power didn't come from one giant leap. It came from never underestimating the small steps, from respecting the little victories, from stacking win after win until the momentum became a force of nature. Promises create identity, and the truth behind that statement is deeper than most people realize. Who you are is not just shaped by what you say to the world. It is shaped by what you whisper to yourself when no one else is listening. Every time you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you are telling your mind and your soul, this is who I am. And every time you break a promise to yourself, you are also sending a message. I can't be trusted. I don't follow through. I don't mean what I say. Identity is built on repetition, and promises are the bricks that construct it. They are not just commitments. They are declarations of who you choose to be. When you think about the most powerful people you've ever met, you can sense their identity before they even speak. They walk with certainty. They stand with conviction because they know who they are. That kind of certainty doesn't come from talent, luck, or even external achievements. It comes from an unshakable trust in themselves, a trust built by honoring their own word. If they say they'll do something, they do it, and every time they follow through, they reinforce the foundation of their identity. This is how confidence is born. Confidence isn't about believing you'll figure it out. Confidence is about knowing you'll show up because you've proven it to yourself time and time again. Promises kept are proof, and proof creates identity. Most people don't struggle because they lack goals. They struggle because they lack integrity with themselves. They say they want to get in shape, but they hit snooze on the alarm. They say they want to save money, but they spend recklessly. They say they want to be better, but when the moment comes, they choose comfort over commitment. With each broken promise, their identity shifts downward. They stop seeing themselves as someone capable, and they start seeing themselves as someone who always quits, someone who can't follow through. Identity is fragile when it is built on broken promises. The danger is that once you believe that story about yourself, you begin to live it out, and the cycle becomes harder to break. On the other hand, when you begin to honor your promises, even the smallest ones, your identity rises. You start to see yourself as someone who is dependable, someone who doesn't back down, someone who does what they say they will do. That self-image begins to change how you act in every situation. If you keep a promise to yourself to wake up early and train, you don't just build discipline in the morning. You carry that identity into every area of your life. You negotiate differently. You show up differently. You carry yourself differently. The promise may have been small, but the impact on your identity is massive. This is why making promises to yourself is not something to take lightly. Every promise you make is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Each one is a thread in the fabric of your identity. You can't lie to yourself and escape the consequences. Your subconscious is always watching, always recording, always shaping your sense of self based on whether or not you kept your word. That's why people who constantly break promises to themselves struggle with self-doubt. They don't trust themselves anymore. It's not that they don't have the ability, it's that their identity has been weakened by inconsistency. When you begin to shift and keep promises, something powerful happens, your identity expands. You start to see yourself as someone who is in control of their destiny, someone who can take action regardless of circumstance. Each kept promise becomes a building block, and soon you are standing on a foundation strong enough to carry heavy dreams. People often look for external validation, waiting for the world to acknowledge them. But the real validation comes from within. When you look in the mirror and know, without hesitation, that you are someone who does what they say they will do, you don't need the world to approve. You already have self-approval. Another hidden power of promises is that they create alignment. When your words, actions, and beliefs are in harmony, your identity is stable and powerful. When they are in conflict, your identity is fractured. If you say you want to be healthy, but you keep eating in ways that damage your body, the conflict between your words and actions weakens your sense of self. But when you say, I am someone who values health, and you back it up with consistent action, the alignment creates strength. That strength becomes part of your identity, and identity drives behavior automatically. Once you see yourself as someone who values health, you don't have to wrestle with every decision about food or exercise. You act in alignment with who you believe you are. Promises are not just about tasks or goals, they are about self-respect. When you break promises to yourself, you erode respect for yourself. You begin to feel like your own words are empty. But when you keep promises, you earn your own respect. And respect for yourself is the foundation of all confidence. Because if you don't respect yourself, no amount of external respect will ever fill that void. People chase validation from others, but it will always feel hollow if they haven't built validation from within. That validation is built by keeping promises. The strongest identities are forged in the fire of discipline. Not in the easy promises, but in the difficult ones. Anyone can keep a promise when it's convenient, but true identity is built when you keep promises even when it hurts, even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs you. That's when you prove to yourself that your word matters more than your mood, that your character matters more than your comfort. Each time you do this, you strengthen the foundation of who you are. You move from being someone who tries to being someone who simply is. The person who is doesn't have to argue with themselves every day because the identity has already been decided. Promises also shape your future self. Every promise you make today is either building or destroying the person you are becoming. If you keep the promises, your future self will stand tall, built on a history of integrity. If you break them, your future self will inherit the weakness you've created. This is why promises are not small. They are investments in your future identity. When you say, I'll start tomorrow, and then you don't, you're not just hurting today. You're training your future self to expect failure. But when you say, I'll start today, and you do, you're training your future self to expect victory. Think about how trust works in relationships. If someone keeps their word consistently, you trust them. If they break their word repeatedly, you stop trusting them. The same principle applies to yourself. Your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you have, and trust is the foundation. Every promise kept builds trust. Every promise broken weakens it. Without trust in yourself, you will hesitate, you will doubt, you will sabotage your own progress. With trust in yourself, you move with confidence, you make decisions quickly, and you act boldly. That trust comes from nothing more than honoring your word to yourself. This is why identity is not a matter of chance, but a matter of choice. You choose it every day through the promises you make and keep. You are either building an identity of strength or an identity of weakness. You are either creating a self-image of someone who does or someone who quits. Identity is not something you find. It is something you build, and promises are the tools. If you want to become someone greater, start with the promises you make to yourself today. Keep them, guard them, respect them, because each one is a step toward becoming that person. People talk about wanting transformation, about wanting to reinvent themselves, but transformation is nothing more than a series of kept promises. Reinvention doesn't come from talking about change. It comes from proving change through action. Every day you have the chance to prove a new identity. And the more you prove it, the more it becomes real. Identity is not built in a single moment of inspiration. It is built in the quiet, consistent moments when you choose to honor your word to yourself even when no one is watching. Promises create identity because they define your standard. Your standard is what you will or will not tolerate from yourself. When you break promises, you lower the standard. When you keep promises, you raise it. And once the standard rises, you refuse to go back. That refusal becomes part of your identity. You are no longer someone who allows yourself to settle because you've raised the bar. Standards create identity, and promises create standards. That's why every small decision matters. It is not just about the action. It is about what the action says about who you are. The weight of a promise is not measured in the size of the action, but in the effect it has on your identity. A small promise kept can be more powerful than a grand goal abandoned because the kept promise proves reliability while the abandoned goal reinforces failure. That's why it is better to make small, realistic promises and keep them than to make big promises and break them. Over time, those small promises kept will elevate your identity far beyond what broken big promises ever could. Identity is shaped by consistency, not by occasional flashes of effort. Your identity is the story you tell yourself, and promises are the chapters that write that story. If you keep your word, your story becomes one of strength, one of persistence, one of victory. If you break your word, your story becomes one of hesitation, one of doubt, one of defeat. Every day, you are writing that story, and every promise you keep or break is shaping the plot. The question is not just what you want to achieve, but who you want to become. Because at the end of the day, achievements fade, but identity lasts. The person you become is what you carry with you forever. And that person is built on promises. Sacrifice fuels transformation. And anyone who has ever risen above mediocrity knows that nothing changes until something is given up. Every dream comes with a cost. Every vision demands payment. And the currency is sacrifice. The problem is that most people want the reward without the sacrifice, the outcome without the process, the breakthrough without the struggle. They want to climb the mountain, but they don't want to feel the burn in their legs. They want to cross the finish line, but they don't want to put in the miles. They want to change their life, but they don't want to give up the habits that keep them trapped. Transformation never happens by accident. It is fueled by deliberate choices to let go of the things that hold you back in order to reach for the things that will carry you forward. Sacrifice is uncomfortable, and that's why it's so powerful. If it didn't hurt, it wouldn't change you. Comfort keeps you the same. Sacrifice reshapes you. When you sacrifice, you are forcing yourself to grow into a new version of who you are, a version that can handle what you're asking for. People want transformation, but try to keep everything the same. Same friends, same habits, same mindset, same routine. But nothing great comes from holding on to everything. Something must be cut away. Something must be left behind. The old version of you cannot carry the weight of the new life you're asking for. And the bridge between who you are and who you want to be is sacrifice. Think about anyone who has ever achieved mastery. The athlete who became a champion sacrificed weekends, parties, comfort, sleep. The entrepreneur who built a thriving business sacrificed stability, certainty, the 9 to 5 safety net. The leader who grew into influence sacrificed time, ego, and short-term pleasure. The parent who raised strong children sacrificed personal convenience for the sake of legacy. In every story of transformation, sacrifice is the common denominator. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. Sacrifice is the refining fire that burns away weakness and leaves behind strength. The truth is, sacrifice reveals how badly you want it. Everyone says they want to change, but few are willing to give up what it takes. Desire is proven not by words, but by sacrifices. If you want health, what are you willing to give up? Junk food, laziness, the excuse of I'll start tomorrow? If you want success, what are you willing to give up? Sleep, distractions, comfort zones. If you want love, what are you willing to give up? Selfishness, pride, fear. If you want mastery, what are you willing to give up? Entertainment, wasted hours, shallow pleasures. Every level of transformation demands its own level of sacrifice. And the bigger the vision, the bigger the cost. Sacrifice is also where most people quit, because sacrifice demands delayed gratification. The world teaches us to crave instant results, instant pleasure, instant comfort. But sacrifice is the opposite. Sacrifice says, I'll suffer now so I can shine later. Sacrifice says, I'll let go of this temporary comfort because I believe in a greater reward down the line. And that's why it transforms you. Sacrifice is the training ground for patience, endurance, and strength. Every time you sacrifice something, you are not just giving something up. You are gaining the discipline to carry something greater. There's another truth about sacrifice. It doesn't just cost you something, it reveals you to yourself. When you sacrifice, you confront your limits. You learn how much pain you can tolerate, how much discomfort you can endure, how strong your willpower really is. Most people never find out who they truly are because they never push themselves into sacrifice. They stay safe. They stay comfortable. They never test their own boundaries. But when you sacrifice, you see what you're made of. You discover parts of yourself you never knew existed. You realize you are stronger than you thought, more resilient than you imagined, more capable than you believed. Sacrifice pulls the greatness out of you because it forces you to dig deeper than convenience ever could. Sacrifice is the exchange rate for transformation. You don't become someone new without giving up pieces of the old you. Every habit you break, every comfort you release, every excuse you abandon, it is a sacrifice. But that sacrifice creates space for new growth. You can't pour new wine into old wineskins, and you can't build a new life on the foundation of old habits. Sacrifice clears the ground. It makes room for transformation to take root. Without sacrifice, you're trying to plant seeds in soil that's already crowded with weeds. Sacrifice pulls out the weeds so the new growth can flourish. And make no mistake, sacrifice is not just about what you give up. It's about what you gain in return. When you sacrifice hours of sleep to wake up early and work on your craft, you gain momentum. When you sacrifice junk food, you gain energy. When you sacrifice toxic relationships, you gain peace. When you sacrifice laziness, you gain strength. When you sacrifice distractions, you gain focus. The trade may feel painful in the moment, but the return on investment is always greater. Sacrifice feels like loss, but it is actually the down payment on transformation. Sacrifice also sharpens focus. When you give something up, you're declaring that what you want matters more than what you let go of. Sacrifice eliminates the noise and clarifies the priority. You can't serve two masters. You can't chase your dream and your distractions with equal intensity. You can't grow while clinging to what holds you back. Sacrifice is the act of saying, this is what I value most, and I'm willing to give up everything else for it. That focus is what allows transformation to accelerate. The reason most people drift is because they refuse to sacrifice. They try to hold on to everything and end up moving nowhere. The power of sacrifice is also generational. When you sacrifice today, you don't just transform yourself, you transform those who come after you. The child who grows up seeing a parent sacrifice for a better life inherits a mindset of resilience. The team that watches their leader sacrifice for the mission adopts the same standard. Sacrifice inspires others because it demonstrates commitment in its purest form. People can argue with your words, but they cannot argue with your sacrifice. Sacrifice is proof that you are serious. It is proof that you are willing to pay the cost. And that proof becomes a beacon for others, showing them what transformation requires. Sacrifice has another dimension that most people overlook. It forces you to confront your values. What you are willing to sacrifice reveals what you truly value. If you say you value health, but you're not willing to sacrifice poor habits, you don't really value health. If you say you value growth, but you're not willing to sacrifice comfort, you don't really value growth. If you say you value success, but you're not willing to sacrifice your time and energy, you don't really value success. Sacrifice strips away the lies and reveals the truth. It forces you to be honest about what you actually want, because your actions will always prove your priorities. And sacrifice doesn't always mean giving up something bad. Sometimes it means giving up something good for something greater. This is where most people get stuck. They're not trapped by toxic habits. They're trapped by decent ones. They settle for average because it's comfortable, and they never reach excellence because they're not willing to sacrifice good enough for great. Sacrifice in this sense is about discernment. It's about looking at your life and asking, what is holding me back from the highest version of myself, even if it looks fine on the surface? That level of sacrifice demands courage because it often means letting go of what feels safe in order to chase what feels uncertain. But that is where true transformation lives, beyond the boundaries of safety, in the territory of sacrifice. Sacrifice is also cumulative. One sacrifice might feel small, almost insignificant, but stack enough of them and you'll wake up a completely different person. Skip the party to study, sacrifice. Wake up early to train, sacrifice. Say no to the dessert, sacrifice. Say yes to the grind, sacrifice. Each one on its own doesn't transform you, but together they add up to something unstoppable. Transformation is not about one grand sacrifice. It's about thousands of small sacrifices made consistently over time. Every single one is a stroke of the chisel, shaping you into the person you were meant to be. The beauty of sacrifice is that it creates pride and ownership. When you sacrifice for something, you value it more deeply. The athlete who sacrificed years of training values the championship more than the spectator who just watched. The entrepreneur who sacrificed sleep and stability values their business more than anyone else. The person who sacrificed comfort to build their body values their health in a way that can't be bought. Sacrifice makes the reward sweeter because you know the price you paid to get it. Without sacrifice, rewards feel shallow and fleeting. With sacrifice, rewards carry weight and meaning. Sacrifice also silences excuses. When you sacrifice, you eliminate the option of blaming others or blaming circumstances. You can't say you didn't have time because you sacrificed your leisure. You can't say you didn't have resources because you sacrificed convenience to create opportunity. You can't say you didn't have support because you sacrificed comfort to build resilience. Sacrifice forces you to own your journey fully. It puts the power in your hands. And when you fully own the process, transformation becomes inevitable. Sacrifice is not easy, and it's not meant to be. If it were easy, it wouldn't change you. But in that difficulty lies the power. Sacrifice requires strength, but it also builds strength. The very act of giving something up stretches you, toughens you, shapes you into someone capable of carrying more. That's why the people who sacrifice the most are often the strongest. They didn't start that way. They became that way through sacrifice. Sacrifice was the training ground for the transformation. At the heart of it all, sacrifice is love for your future self. It's saying, I care about who I am becoming so much that I am willing to give up something today. It's the act of protecting your destiny from being stolen by your present impulses. Sacrifice is proof that your vision matters more than your comfort, that your dream matters more than your excuses, that your purpose matters more than your pleasure. It is the act of choosing transformation over stagnation, growth over ease, future over present. And once you understand that, sacrifice stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like the greatest investment you could ever make. Legacy is built on consistency, and consistency is the quiet force that turns intentions into reality, dreams into history, and moments into eternity. Legacy is not about what you do once. It's about what you do repeatedly over time. It's not the big speeches, the grand gestures, or the rare highlights that define your story. It's the daily grind, the repeated choices, the habits you sustain when no one is watching. Legacy is the accumulation of consistent action, stacked day after day, year after year, until your life becomes a testament to what you stood for. People often mistake legacy for success, but they are not the same. Success can be fleeting, a moment in time, a medal, a bank balance, an achievement. Legacy is deeper. Legacy is the echo of your consistency, the impact of your character, the story your actions tell long after you are gone. Legacy outlives you, and the only way to build it is through consistency. You can be talented, you can be charismatic, you can be lucky, but without consistency, your story fades. With consistency, Even the smallest seed grows into a towering tree whose shade covers generations. Consistency is powerful because it compounds. One workout doesn't make you fit. One book doesn't make you wise. One speech doesn't make you a leader. But show up every day, keep learning, keep training, keep speaking, and the results pile up until they become undeniable. Legacy is not about a single day of greatness. It's about decades of showing up. The world respects consistency because it is rare. Anyone can be great once. Few can be great every day. The people remembered are the ones who chose consistency over convenience, persistence over excuses, commitment over comfort. Legacy is also about trust, and trust is born out of consistency. When people know what to expect from you, when they can count on you to show up the same way day after day, your influence multiplies. You can't build a legacy if people see you as unpredictable, unreliable, inconsistent. The leaders who shape history are the ones who live their values consistently. They don't say one thing and do another. They don't show up strong one day and vanish the next. They embody who they are, always, because they understand that consistency creates credibility, and credibility is the foundation of legacy. Consistency is not glamorous. It doesn't get celebrated daily. In fact, it often feels invisible. No one applauds you for eating clean today, for training when you don't feel like it, for reading instead of scrolling, for choosing discipline over distraction. But over time, those invisible choices create visible results, and those results create impact. When people look back at your life, they won't remember every individual choice, but they will remember the pattern. They will remember that you were steady, that you stood firm, that you kept showing up. Legacy is not the product of occasional intensity, but of sustained consistency. Consistency is also how you build mastery. Talent can take you far, but talent without consistency stalls. Mastery requires repetition. You cannot become a master of anything without putting in the hours, the days, the years. Legacy is tied to mastery because people remember the masters. They remember the ones who dedicated themselves to their craft consistently, who showed up when it was boring, when it was hard, when it was thankless. Mastery is not built in bursts of passion. It is built in consistent practice, and legacy is born from mastery. Legacy demands consistency in character as much as in action. It's not just about what you achieve, but about how you live. If you want to be remembered as a person of integrity, you can't only have integrity when it's easy. You have to live it consistently. If you want to be remembered as a person of kindness, you can't only be kind when it benefits you. You have to embody kindness daily. If you want to be remembered as a leader, you can't only lead when things are smooth. You have to lead consistently in storms. Character becomes legacy through consistency. Without it, your story has cracks. With it, your story becomes solid. Consistency is also about the long view. Legacy is not built overnight, and that's why consistency is so hard. We live in a world addicted to quick results where everyone wants transformation instantly. But legacy is the opposite. It requires patience. It requires the willingness to plant seeds you may never see grow, to build something that might not be fully realized until long after you are gone. That's why consistency is sacred. It demands faith that what you're doing today matters, even if you don't see the fruit tomorrow. The people who build legacies are the ones who play the long game, who choose faithfulness over flash, who believe that every brick laid today builds the foundation for tomorrow. Legacy is also tied to influence, and influence grows through consistent example. People are not moved by what you say once. They are moved by what they see you do consistently. Children don't learn from the lecture you give them one time. They learn from the life you live every day. Teams don't follow leaders who give great speeches. Once they follow leaders who show up consistently. Communities don't remember someone for what they promised. They remember them for what they lived day in and day out. Influence requires consistency, And consistency builds legacy. The challenge with consistency is that it requires resilience. There will be days when you don't feel like it, when progress feels invisible, when the grind feels endless. But consistency demands that you show up anyway. That's why it builds legacy, because it requires you to rise above feelings, to rise above circumstances, to rise above excuses. Every day you choose consistency, you are building proof that you are greater than your mood, greater than your weakness, greater than your circumstances. Over time, those choices define you. They write your story. They shape your legacy. Consistency also creates momentum, and momentum sustains legacy. When you first start, consistency feels like pushing a heavy boulder uphill. Every step is hard, every push takes energy, and progress is slow. But if you keep going day after day, the boulder begins to roll. Momentum takes over, and suddenly your consistency carries you forward. People begin to notice, opportunities open up, doors you never imagined start to swing wide. And the longer you maintain consistency, the stronger that momentum grows. Legacy is the result of decades of momentum built through unwavering consistency. There is also a freedom in consistency. When you decide to live consistently with your values, your goals, and your vision, you eliminate constant decision fatigue. You don't ask yourself every day if you feel like doing the work. You simply do it because it's who you are. That identity frees you. You don't live at the mercy of your moods. You don't waste time debating. You act consistently, and that creates power. Legacy is not built by those who occasionally act, but by those who act consistently until it becomes part of their nature. Consistency is also what allows ordinary people to build extraordinary legacies. You don't have to be the most talented, the smartest, or the luckiest. If you are consistent, you will outlast those who are inconsistent. You will build what they abandon. You will grow where they quit. Consistency is the great equalizer. It turns average into excellence, potential into performance, possibility into permanence. History remembers the ones who kept showing up, who didn't stop, who stayed faithful to the process when others walked away. Legacy is built not on flashes of brilliance, but on a lifetime of consistency. Another truth about legacy is that it's not just about what you leave behind. It's about what you live right now. People are watching you today. They are learning from your consistency or your lack of it. Legacy is not a someday concept. It's a daily reality. Every day you are either building it or eroding it. Every day your consistency or inconsistency is shaping the way you will be remembered. The person who says they'll do something and never follows through is remembered for that. The person who lives consistently with their principles, even in small ways, is remembered for that too. Legacy is in the daily decisions, and those decisions are either building or breaking it. Consistency also creates stability, and stability is part of legacy. The world is full of chaos, full of people who change with the wind, full of leaders who collapse under pressure. But when you are consistent, you become a rock. People know they can depend on you. They know you won't shift with every storm. They know you will remain steady. That steadiness becomes part of your legacy. It becomes what people remember and what they build upon. Because legacy is not just what you achieve, it's the stability you provide for others to grow. And perhaps the most profound truth about consistency and legacy is this: it is not just about you. Your consistency is not only shaping your own story, it is shaping the stories of those connected to you. Your family, your team, your community, they are all affected by your consistency. When you are consistent, you create a ripple effect. Your children inherit discipline. Your team inherits resilience. Your community inherits hope. Legacy is not individual, it is collective, and it is carried forward by the people who were touched by your consistency. Legacy is built on consistency because consistency proves what truly mattered to you. At the end of your life, people won't remember everything you said. They won't remember every plan you made. They will remember what you consistently lived. They will remember the values you lived every day, the effort you put in, the standards you upheld. Legacy is the reflection of consistency, and it is the ultimate reward for a life lived with discipline, focus, and purpose.